So today we're going to continue the analysis and the comparison of the exponential rises, uptrends that Bitcoin and gold experienced and how they have retraced from them since. So if we look at both of these pictures, we can see some similarities and differences. Let's first of all go to each individually. So looking at gold, we have the most apparent level here, first of all, is this one, where we had a high over here, then we broke through it, we came back down to test it, and we shot right up. And then, of course, we came back down to test it again, and we had quite a nice bounce from there. Well, let's just continue with gold for now. So one thing which we see as a similarity, certainly, is, well, first of all, about this line, this level. Bitcoin has a rather similar level in the sense that we topped out over here, we broke through, used it as support. Of course, the big difference being that we haven't come back down to test this level yet, which the bears might be using as a target level if we do break this support. But one thing which we can see, which is very similar on both charts, pretty much identical actually, is this structure at the top here. So what did we see first? We saw, obviously the whole move was started getting exponential from here, but over here, look, it really just goes absolutely crazy. And this is where we see the longest bars. And not only do we see the longest bars, but we see this sort of triangle structure in the end where we go bop, bop, and we just take the whole move out in one big red candle. So very, very violent moves upwards and then very violent move downwards as well. So that's Bitcoin. And in gold, again, this triangular structure is very similar. So we see a big move up and then bam, a big move down. And then what happens, again, the same with both gold and Bitcoins, that they go into this sort of ranging structure. So for gold, we had these highs over here, which were tested once, twice, three times, didn't break, three times over here, and then finally it broke down here. And Bitcoin as well. So this is a little bit less clear. I mean, we have one test over here. You could say that's another test if you call this whole zone. But in general, we tested up there. We came down to test here at the beginning of the first sort of dump. And the second time we just broke through it. And for Bitcoin, what's more notable is this level, because we came to test it again and broke, and again we failed to break it. So moving forward, this level is certainly going to be, the 11K. And again, I'm just using broad zones here. I don't think that anyone can accurately say that it's exactly 11,667. That's just not how it works. It's this general zone over here where there's a lot of liquidity and a lot of potentially traders who are looking to close positions. So yeah. Those are the things which strike us as being very similar. In other words, the exponential structure where it finishes with this like very large green and very large red candle, then a little bit of a range over here, and then breaking that range. So going back to gold, again, as I mentioned, this triangular structure at the top, big bounce up, big back down, big bounce down. Well, wasn't really a bounce up, it was more continuing with the momentum. Bounced back down and then in the range, and we broke this range and came down. Now with gold, we are currently, or the last, after this retracement sort of zone, we are really in a ranging zone over here. But what is very worthy to note is that, well, obviously we had the lower lows over here, so nothing was looking great for gold, until we came to this critical point, which, well, in hindsight proved to be critical. And even without having tested this, a lot of bulls were looking for entries, this having been a recent resistance and then turned support. And it turned out to be a successful entry for the bulls, assuming that they would take profit around here. But even for the long term, the bulls are still not too scared, because we've had higher lows since then, and this higher low, well, it could certainly come down lower. For now, we have a bullish hammer candle, looks pretty solid. But then, of course, if we're still trading within this range. So, and we still, similar to Bitcoin with the 11,500 level, here we have this sort of, this $14,000 level. to break in order to really give the bulls confidence that we have reversed the trend. But the difference between gold and Bitcoin is most apparent in the most recent structure. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we have the similarities. Oh, we can see it over here actually. We have the resistance, breakthrough resistance turns into support, resistance breakthrough resistance turns support, go all the way up. Have this crazy yo-yo structure, go up, come down hard, range a little bit, break that range, and now is where things turn to be a bit different. So for Bitcoin, after, well, of course, everything is much more violent for Bitcoin because it's a much less mature market. But Bitcoin is definitely looking a lot more bearish than gold is right now, for the simple reason that gold has had higher lows on the over here, whereas Bitcoin has had, well, it's been sort of up and down. We had a low here, higher low, lower low, higher low, and now we're in this equilibrium pattern. We just go to gold to Bitcoin. So we can make this most clear by getting the magnet and putting some lines here. So we have, oh, and not just the magnet, but actually this. Actually, the magnet I'm going to take out, just it's not really necessary. Just visually speaking, we have this low here, this high here, and now we have a higher low, lower high, and a higher low over here. Well, this week isn't finished yet, but this is most likely a higher low. And now we're in this equilibrium pattern where, maybe we get a lower high over here, and then it's going to be quite telling what happens when we break out of this pattern, because this is what typically happens with equilibrium patterns, is that we have a fairly abrupt move in one direction or the other. So it's unlikely that we're just going to sort of range over here and then maybe move up slowly and sort of come down. It's more like we're going to range here, and either we're going to come up quite hard and take out some of these resistances at the 7,400 and the 8,500 possibly, or we're going to come down. And unfortunately, if we come down, it's going to be a lot more violent, most likely, than if we go up, because we don't have any really solid support zones until, let's see, until, well, one is over here, of course. Let's just get rid of all of these lines because it's messing up the chart. So if we do break this support, which has, roughly speaking, we've had support over here, here, there. So again, I'm drawing this whole zone. If we break that, sure, you can say, well, hey, we had a resistance here, which turned into support over here, and that's a valid point. My only thing that I would be worried about using this as a very solid level. I mean, obviously, there's going to be some bulls showing up here, but the real support is over here and in this zone, and breaking this is going to be very significant indeed. And it just seems somewhat unlikely that this will be that we'll just bounce off very hard from here, unless it's maybe like a long wick down, pushing right back, all the way back up. But if gold is anything to go by, then of course it's quite possible that we come down to this level, where there's also a lot more there's more liquidity over here than there was over here, because this was just sort of an upper shadow coming right back down, whereas here we have both these candles closing up there. And yeah, so in any case, the levels to watch out for Bitcoin is certainly the 5,000 and the 3,000 zones if we come down. And if we start moving up, well, we have, first of all, the 7.4 to break, then we have the 8.5 to break, the 10K. So there's arguably more resistance going up than there is down. But fundamental news, some very strong fundamental news could certainly cause this shift to happen. We'll see what happens in that regard. But yeah, in conclusion, it's not. I don't think we should say, oh well, gold came out of this structure, and we had lows and lows, and we had this kind of capitulation point, and Bitcoin hasn't had that. that's in general, capitulation is what the bulls are looking for a very good entry into the market. And in Bitcoin, the only real capitulation we had was at the beginning of this move. So what's a bit worrying is that, well, we've had this capitulation, but since then, we've just had these lower highs on the weekly, and these higher lows are not that significant yet. And certainly in this equilibrium pattern that we are in now, it's even adds even more uncertainty. So was this the real and only capitulation that Bitcoin is going to have, or are we going to have another capitulation moving down? I mean, you can see in gold here, after we broke this sort of ranging structure, we had a brutal move down, and then we just kind of slowly went down. And here we had this sort of bouncing yo-yo, and then a brutal move down here, and now we've been bouncing around. So, but instead of bouncing around downwards in order to get this capitulation zone, we've kind of gone a little bit sideways. So it's not going to provide us really the proper springboard to shoot back up. Well, at least that's of course entirely speculation, but yeah, I think this is very useful to look at the market structures of like this without even looking at any indicators necessarily, because it just gives you a good idea of where you are in the market. I mean, for gold, for example, I this is not investment advice, of course, but I'm gonna strongly consider buying some around this level. I mean, obviously we could come back down here. There's very strong support down here, but the upside seems pretty solid now from this level, and I'm liking these higher lows, higher low over here. And certainly, if we break this level, then that would be a pretty bullish signal. Whereas Bitcoin, it's hard for the bulls to make an argument for entering now, very hard. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So that's it for now. See you later.